Good afternoon, everyone. So I get to say a whole bunch of things before I even go on to slide number 2. So let's see. The first is that I'm a fairly unusual person, as I think Theo started to sort of gesture toward, to be in this position. I'm not a lifelong technology transfer executive, but I'm a serial technology entrepreneur. And I would like to think that in appointing me, the president and provost made a very conscious decision to try to bring an entrepreneurial way of looking things to commercialization here at the university, rather than trying to turn an academic into someone who had that entrepreneurial point of view. And so really, I think most everything I've done as a change agent is because the university leadership really saw that this is what they wanted. And so I think it's a really modern and exciting time here at the university. I was so gratified to see this poster when I walked in because, as I guess has been discussed today, this is a product of the Washington Technology Industry Association. First of all, I'd like to say the outgoing executive director of the WTIA, Ken Meyer, who was in my office a couple of days ago, he's a friend, is in Bali. I have been led to understand for the last 6 or 7 months that there's a shortage of these posters, which is why we can't have more. But now I see them all over the room. So if you don't want your poster, I want your poster. You're about to hear why. You know, this has been a very helpful poster to the University of Washington and to the Center for Commercialization, which is the new name for tech transfer here at the university. As you can see, it shows the many startups that are orbiting around the entity that created them, or out of which they came. And while, I guess, in the constellations there, the biggest heavenly body, Jupiter, is Microsoft, right next to it is Saturn, the University of Washington. And if the WBBA, the Washington Biotech and Biomedical Association, would only undertake such a mapping effort, there would only be one heavenly body. The University of Washington would be the sun. So we would really like them to create such a poster. But at any rate, we brought that poster on foam board or foam core down to the legislature about a year ago when they were considering a number of measures, one of which was whether to provide the university with about $8 million in funding that would go toward the molecular engineering building. And there have been a whole bunch of finagling. I think we all know that this is a very difficult... Turn this on? Oh, good. I need AV help here. Oh, I see. Okay. There had been a lot of finagling such that that money had been disappeared. And as each legislator went into the final room to conference, they passed that map. And most of them told Randy Hodgins, our Vice Provost of External Affairs, that but for that map and what it demonstrated in terms of our contribution as a university to the economic development for the state, to job growth, they wouldn't have decided in favor of giving the university that money. So you'll hear a little bit more about subsequent efforts that we've made to show the legislature and Olympia our contribution to the economy beyond workforce development, which is, of course, our primary contribution and the most important one. The next thing I was going to say before I move on to slide 2 is that one of the many changes we've made at C4C can be observed by noticing the difference between the handout in your folder, in your packet, and the presentation I'm about to give, because we've made an effort of late to bring on the talent that we would need to better position our office with the corporate and industry-friendly aesthetic that we think will help us to do the work that we do. And so you'll see that this is a big improvement, at least aesthetically, over what you've got in your packet, which was created just about a week and a half ago, and although most of the content is the same. Oh, regional institutions for innovation commercialization. Well, I guess the first thing I should say, I'm going to be talking about one, and that is our office here at the university. You know, half the research going on in this region is going on here. So one of the points that I like to make is that if we're not making it happen here, it's not going to be happening in the region. I mean, yes, it's important to make the right things be happening in commercialization at the Hutch and SBRI and the Institute for Systems Biology and WSU. But if it isn't happening at the University of Washington and of course, even more so if it isn't happening at the School of Medicine, which represents such an enormous percentage of the life science research going on in the region, then it isn't going to be happening. And the chances are, because we have such scale, that if it is happening here, then most likely it's going to be an infectious thing and it's going to affect everyone and it's going to happen everywhere. So it really has to be happening at the university for Washington State and the Puget Sound region to get where it needs to go. President Obama, and I think almost everyone else in government, has been talking about the extent to which we're going to have to innovate our way out of many of the major problems that are facing the planet and society, from global warming to cancer. And I think some of us don't often think about it this way, but the American taxpayers are the most aggressive and generous and optimistic venture capitalists the world's ever seen. When you think about the amount of money that we've put into NSF and NIH research over the past decades. And of course, the motivations are many for that investment. It is one of the ways that we fund graduate studies in sciences and engineering in this country. But the primary motivation is impact. We want that investment to yield products and goods and that will help our country to maintain its competitive advantage. And we want to yield the diagnostics, therapies, cures, and methods that will help us to improve the health of our people. And that's only going to happen if we manage to get those innovations out and circulating into society. You can't improve anyone's health or save a life if a technology is still in the lab. It has to be in the clinic. And so that means we have to find either an existing company to license it, or we have to convince a group of people where the innovation is an appropriate one for this and not merely a product or a feature, to start a company around it. One interesting barrier that maybe isn't as obvious as some, the most, I guess, obvious I think that so many of us have heard of is the Valley of Death, that huge absence of funding between when money for research ends and the innovation is at the point at which the first dollar of outside capital could be attracted to fund the ongoing development of the innovation. But one of the more subtle barriers is whether the research was relevant at all to begin with, whether it was the kind of research that was ever likely to yield an outcome that would be useful to society. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. Uh-oh. It's so funny because really, as I said, I'm not a technology transfer executive, I'm a technologist. Spacebar, thank you. So what is our big vision? Well, technology transfer is a really interesting phenomenon. First of all, it's pretty broadly hated across the country for a lot of different reasons, one of which is its origin. It came out of a federal act, the Bayh-Dole Act, and was imposed on many at the beginning. And also, I think it's just a really tricky thing to do well. And one of the reasons is that so many tech transfer offices try to please they have a number of conflicting missions. They're trying to please and appease a very broad group of constituents.